How did you find lesson 7, and how did you get on with the 8 steps towards finding your voice? It can be quite scary, can't it? You know, if you're somebody who's naturally quite passive and doesn't like to get into arguments or rock the boat, putting yourself out there and being courageous and being brave to actually try these things can be quite scary, and I totally get that. That's why it's really important that you start with small things, because all that will happen if you start to challenge bigger things in your life, you're likely to have resistance and you're not quite ready for that. So it's important that we start to make small changes in areas that are not so significant. So as we start to build our confidence muscle, and the more we do it, the more confident we'll feel, the more we'll get used to learning certain language. You know, whenever we're going through changes, a really important part of the change cycle is reflection and reviewing. So we're constantly almost calibrating as we go through, looking at what went well, what didn't go well. That's why I really encourage the reflection part as you're going through this 4-week course, because the more you do it, the more that will become a familiar process for you, where through every good experience or every challenging experience, we start to become much more aware of how we related to it, what went well, what didn't go well. And we kind of start to do this automatically without criticism and without judgment. So it just becomes part of the learning process. And it kind of, you know, because the guilt and the shame gets touched a lot as we start, if we make mistakes. So it's really important that we actually start to learn some healthy strategies that help us to be much more critiquing of what we do and don't do from a sort of a review, a reflection and a review perspective. So week 4, lesson 8. So this is your final lesson, although there is a reflection exercise and a next step exercise to complete after you've finished this lesson. So we're going to continue with the theme of self-care, because in the last lesson, really, we looked at emotional self-care and finding your voice. And there are 5 aspects or 5 components of self-care that I want you to become much more familiar with. So again, as normal, this lesson is broken down into 2 exercises. The first exercise is have a read of the different kinds of self-care so you familiarise yourself with them. And then over the next 14 days, you're going to do a 14-day self-care challenge. So each day you're going to have a new activity to get involved in, simple steps that help to develop a really robust self-care plan for you. So get involved in those 14 days. They're all there in the links on the course. So days 1 to 7 are on one link, and days 8 to 14 are on the next link. And in your workbook, there's a space for each of the days. So I want you to engage in the activity, and then I want you to just go over and do a little bit of a review and reflection of how you found doing the exercise. Did you do it? If you did, great. How did you find the experience? If you didn't, what got in the way of that? Super, super important. Being aware of the things that stop you doing the things you say you want to do is so, so important. And having that documented is really important, because then when we come to do the review, you're going to be able to really clearly see what's working well for you, what isn't working so well, what things do you need to start doing, what things do you need to stop doing. So you're going to have a really nice, robust plan at the end of this course. So that's your first exercise. The second exercise is about developing a long-term self-care plan. And in your worksheet, you'll notice that I've put lots and lots of ideas for self-care activities that you can get involved in. And there is also a weekly self-care plan where you can list the things you're going to do and what days you're going to do them on. So self-care, it's really easy to let it slip. You know, we all have busy lives. You know, jobs, partners, children, parents, hobbies, all of these things that take up our time. And it's that lack of time or that lack of attention on ourselves that stops us from engaging in these self-care activities. But that's what leads us to not having our needs met. It's a little bit deeper than that, because if we've not been shown that self-care is important when we were growing up, it's not something that comes naturally to us. So it's something that we have to practice until it becomes a permanent part of our lifestyle. And also it is being mindful of when we allow that self-care time to slip. So a big part of long-term our long-term success is about buying into the power and the benefits of a daily self-care plan and how important it is, because once that starts to slip, that's when our emotional triggers start firing off. You guys know this stuff. You will have had stages in your life where you are focusing on yourself and you are less emotionally triggered. So it is about being consistent and persistent and making sure you do this stuff. Otherwise, you're going to slip back into old habits. So enjoy this exercise, and I will see you ready for our review and reflection of the last 4 weeks, and then start thinking about your next steps and what that looks like for you.